Good morning. I am going to wait here just a couple of minutes as people are rolling in this morning. One thing I like about our webinars is we have people that join us from all over the country, and I hope the weather is decent where you are. It's been really hot in the Minneapolis area, and actually, I was just talking to Mike earlier here, and I was in Fargo, North Dakota, the last 2 days for some business, and it was actually, even though that's further north, it was actually hotter there than it is here in Minneapolis, which was surprising. And I got in my car a couple of times and it said 101 or 100 degrees, and it was pretty warm. Now, for those of you down south, that's no big deal. For us up here, that's a big deal. I'm going to get started here, and as more people continue to roll in, but welcome this morning. My name is 𝙎𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙬𝙧. I lead Minnesota Crossroads Career Network here in the Minneapolis area, and I'm really glad when we are able to do these webinars once a month. As I mentioned, we have people that join us from all over the country, and I'm glad to have people be able to participate from wherever you are. At the end of the main presentation today, I'll kind of do an overview of everything else we offer with Crossroads. And there are some things we do in person, but there are certainly a number of other things that are available to you online as well. It's all free, and hope that you can participate and take advantage of any of the help and resources as you can, so that you can get through your job search with greater confidence and some moral support, and with greater success. Obviously, that's the goal here, right? I'll mention this again later, but we did have to switch gears a little bit. Some of you signed up for this webinar this morning, seeing a post for Ben Nicholas presenting on networking this morning. Ben unfortunately had to bow out because of another commitment that came up. And so we have Mike Larson this morning that is going to talk on the same topic on networking. And so the content is still excellent. You'll get the same topic that you were expecting. It's just going to be a different face. And I'm really grateful for Mike for stepping in and doing this for us. And I know that you'll be able to appreciate everything that he's able to present this morning. I just want to talk about a couple of things, and I've got a short video to share with you, and then I'll introduce Mike and get going on the main presentation after that. But just a few minutes here. Our hope with Crossroads is to provide certainly the best help and resources as we can for your job search, but while also pointing to the hope and encouragement in Jesus Christ. There's a perspective in the Bible that I think is important to rely on when we're going through challenging times in life, like a job search. It's the idea of always having an attitude of gratitude, no matter what circumstances we may be going through. In Scripture, it says, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." It doesn't say give thanks for all circumstances. You don't have to thank God that you lost your job. Maybe you might, maybe it was a really bad situation and you're just really glad to be out of there. But you don't have to give thanks for every circumstance you're in. But the idea is that no matter what circumstances you find yourself in, be deliberate in maintaining a thankful heart and a grateful attitude. It's easy for us to focus on the things that aren't going the way we want in our lives, and to take for granted or forget about all the things that are good. What we forget many times is that if we have a roof over our head and food in the refrigerator, a healthy body, family, friends, resources, and a community we might be able to turn to for support, we have much, much more than large percentages of people in the world out there. Having an attitude of gratitude makes us less stressed. It makes us happier, more willing to help others, and more likable, and more attractive to potential employers, which is the point of our discussion this morning, right? I encourage you to take time to sit down and literally list all the good things in your life. You hear people say, count your blessings. Well, I think actually doing that gives us a better perspective of what's actually happening in our lives and putting it into proper context. Then acknowledge that all good things come from God and thank Him for it. It makes a big difference when you put things in that proper perspective. We can be thankful that God that the God that created the universe came in human form of Jesus to give us a means to be in relationship with him like never before. That's the first thing to be thankful for. And that's the only thing that will bring true peace and joy in your life. Let me open us in a word of prayer, and then we'll move on with our presentations this morning. Lord, I just thank you that even though we can't see each other, we are able to come together in this virtual meeting to gain some, perhaps some new knowledge or perspective or some ideas that can help in our current circumstances. Father, we are grateful for all the good things we do have in our lives, and we acknowledge that it all comes from you, and we praise you for it. Father, we pray that you use this morning for your purposes, that each person can walk away with something that is helpful and encouraging, and hopefully they hear something from you as well. Pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. With that, I've got a short, I think it's like 8-minute video here by Kathie Lee Gifford. Many of you may know of her from TV from all these many years. And she's got a perspective from her own life that I think can be thoughtful and encouraging. And let me make sure I'm sharing sound here as I share my screen. And I hope that you gain some insight and encouragement from this.
All I ever wanted to be my entire life was to be an actress and a singer. I remember as a little child, my earliest memories of, I think I came out of the womb with a pratfall. I wrote a letter to Walt Disney when I was like 6 years old. And I said, I know you love Annette Funicello, and I know you love Haley Mills, but you really need to meet me. I was a very audacious little girl, and I said, I'm known for my expressions. I was already me then. I was already me. I just had a lifetime ahead to discover how to express it. I was born in Paris, France, but I grew up in Maryland. My dad had 3 different jobs. My mom sold eggs door to door, so it's not as if I grew up with privilege, but I was privileged to have parents like I had. I hated it when my mother called me in to do homework, or my father came to find me because I was putting on shows. Years later, as a 12-year-old girl, I walked into a movie theater to see a movie called The Restless Ones. It was the first movie that the Billy Graham organization had put out. And I remember when the movie was over, there was a sort of an altar call. Would anybody like to come forward and give their life to Jesus? And I couldn't get up fast enough. My brother says, whoa, 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 you're not going to. I said, well, then you better take me. You better go with me, because I'm going down there. I'm going down that aisle. It was the greatest decision I ever made in my entire life. I've been working in the entertainment field since I was 10 years old. To be a young woman in that business is brutal because of the rejection, and it's nonstop, and it's boom, boom, boom. I got ripped one time on an audition for Charlie's Angels, and I'm sitting there, and the casting agent goes, well, let me just tell you right now why you're not right for Charlie's Angels. I go, okay. And she goes, we're looking for a pretty girl. And then she said, and a this and a that, and it was like getting beat. You know, just hit him to the left, hit him to the right. As I was walking out the door, I leaned back in and I went, when you're casting a cartoon, let me know. And I left laughing. That God made me that way. Spotlights are tough because some people die under them. I came to life under one. I remember I went to a school once that I was very, very unhappy in, because I felt like I was trying to be cookie cutter. They were trying to make all of us look alike, sound alike, think alike. And I said, that's the exact opposite of what God wants us to do. God wants us to sing our own song, write our own story, put on our own show. That's the joy of living. I may admire another person, but I don't want to be that person and miss out on being me. That's the adventure of a lifetime. I've been in the desert as many times as I've been on a mountaintop. But I've learned my deepest lessons from the deserts, for sure. I was married for a short time when I was quite young. It was a huge mistake, tremendously unhappy time in my life. And I thought I'd never, ever find joy in a marriage. I came to New York. While I was in New York, I met a man named Frank Gifford. After a 4-year friendship, we fell in love. And from that 29-year-old marriage, I got the 2 greatest gifts I've ever known in my whole life, my son Cody and my daughter Cassidy. God took something horrible in my life and wove it into something beyond belief beautiful. Other times I was accused of ugly things that were not true, that I ran sweatshops for God's sake. All I've ever done in my entire life has been an advocate for children. It was a very dark, dark, dark period for me. But you know what happened from that? God put me to work. So what God did was he said, okay, Kathy, it's unjust what you've been accused of. But why don't you get your eyes off you for a minute and look at the unjust conditions around the world. Maybe you didn't cause it, but people are doing that to other human beings, and you need to care about it. We got laws changed because I stayed in the fight with God's help, and he gave me everything I needed to fight that fight. My husband was unfaithful to me during a brief time in our marriage. It was devastating to me. But I was able to stay in my marriage and have God heal it, and as a result, I've heard from hundreds of thousands of people since then who got courage from that. Courage to forgive their husbands or their wives. Courage to keep their families together. Not everybody does, but I've heard from hundreds of thousands of people through the years who did. On a beautiful Sunday morning, I found my husband passed on to heaven. The look on my husband's face was this. And from that moment on, I had the peace that passes all understanding. He saw Jesus, and Jesus took his breath away. My son then came and helped me try to revive him. He had the same peace. We've all had it since. We've had our sad moments of missing him. But you don't find somebody under those circumstances and find yourself rejoicing even as you're holding your dead, that's what they are, your dead loved one. I was rejoicing. My tears were tears of joy. And I couldn't bear to think about, oh, I lost, woe is me, I'm a widow. No, I'm so grateful that Frank is exactly where he's supposed to be. My biggest struggle at this point in my life is loneliness. I've lost my parents, my husband is gone now, and my children live far away from me. I still live in the same big house where we made a gazillion million memories. And there are times when I am overwhelmed by loneliness. But I've discovered that if I just keep thinking about what I've lost, I don't pay any attention to what I still have. I don't want to live my life in hopelessness. I've been there. That's a town I've been to, hopelessness. I went to some fundraiser years ago, and I felt this tapping on my back. And I turned around, and it was Paul Newman, and he gets down on one knee, and he takes my hand in both of his, and he kisses it, and then he looks up at me with those unbelievable blue eyes. And I went, okay, now I can die. And he sort of had a little trouble getting up because he was 80 years old at that point. And he goes, Kathy, I'm 80-some years old, and I still have a pulse. And I remember going to sleep that night and saying, you know what? Every single day, if I wake up and I have a pulse, I have a purpose. We live in a copycat world. You're supposed to be you uniquely. That's the first letter of unique, you. And that brings a smile to God's face because he didn't make a mistake with you. Life does beat you down. Loss beats you down. Hardship takes its toll. Illness destroys your body. And Jesus said, it's not going to be easy. He said, in this world you will have trouble, but rejoice. Take heart. I have overcome the world. And because I have, I will empower you to overcome your world. My joy is non-negotiable. I tell you, that's the beginning of bliss in life. You understand where your joy comes from, and then you protect it with everything in you. I want to be purposeful. Every day of my life, every moment of it. I'm also getting too old to waste it. But all right. God is not the enemy of joy. He is the creator of joy. We got a lot to rejoice about. You want to fly. You want to soar. You want to dream big dreams and see them come true. You need to partner with the right person. Only Jesus. Only Jesus. I am Kathy Lee Gifford, and I am second.
There we go. I think most of us, I know I fall into this trap all the time. You see somebody that's been successful in life in some way, whether they're a celebrity of some sort or they achieved great things, and you think their whole life was a smooth path to success. And the reality is, the more successful they are, usually it was because they went through some of the biggest challenges and were able to overcome. And all of us face challenges in life, but the attitude we go through it and the um, ability to overcome those challenges is really what I think drives the success in the long run. Anyway, I want to move forward. As I mentioned earlier, but some of you still joined us after that. Some of you signed up to see Ben Nicholas this morning talk about networking. And unfortunately, he had to back out because of something else that came up for him this morning. And so I'm very glad to present Mike Larson. Mike has helped us with Crossroads for a number of years now and does presentations. And he's going to be talking on the same topic this morning on networking. And I really, we're talking before we got on that I really appreciate his approach, because when he covers these topics, he has a very practical step-by-step guide to do it. And I think so many times people hear that I need to be networking for my job search, but they are confused or not clear on exactly how do you go about that. And so Mike is going to share his insights and what he learned in his own journey. Mike comes with a senior HR leadership background from small companies like Shell Oil and Ecolab and General Mills or Pillsbury prior to that. And he has seen it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of other people's job search, and gone through a tough one himself to understand some of this stuff. So Mike, welcome. Thanks for sharing this morning. You've got, this will work. You've got your full screen slides, but you've still got your toolbar at the bottom from your browser, and I'm not sure.
I don't know. You're talking to someone, unfortunately, that doesn't do Zoom much, crowd. So if there's a quick way of doing this, let me know. Otherwise, if it doesn't bug, can we still go? Or
you can still go. Certainly.
Sorry about that, folks.
No worries. You've got the next hour, and I'll be here with to help with any comments or anything. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Harry, and thanks for the introduction. As Harry mentioned, I was a human resource individual for a number of years with some great companies, but I also had the experience of being in transition myself. And for me, as it relates to networking, Harry was exactly right. When I got into transition, I was confident about my ability to put together a good resume. I was confident in my ability to interview, although shouldn't have been that confident, because I learned that I too, even as a human resource individual, needed to do a better job in interviewing. The thing that I was really intimidated by was the whole topic of networking, because I never had really had to do it until I entered transition. And occasionally I'd go to some work, I'd catch a workshop on networking, and I'd sit down and I'd listen to this really dynamic speaker, and then I'd leave the room, and then I asked myself, well, if I ever have to network, what would I do again? I wasn't quite sure how to do it. It sounded great. It sounded positive. It sounded very beneficial. I didn't quite know how to approach it. And I think the other thing that reinforced that fear I had of networking is when I was in human resources, um, I would have people want to network with me all the time. And generally, for the most part, people would come in and they'd send me an email and they'd say, hey, Mike, I'd like to learn more about Pillsbury. I'd like to know more about Shell Oil. and your culture was usually one of the buzzwords they'd use. And they'd come in and they really wouldn't have a plan. They'd have their resume and we do some small talk, and it'd get kind of awkward. And then we talk a little bit about the company I was working for. And then if I didn't have anything that was available for that individual, um, we just sort of played out the time. And he said, keep me in mind if anything pops up. So it was always kind of awkward moments. So those experiences just reinforced the fear I had about networking. And it wasn't until I had gone through transition and had gotten some good support through some outplacement resources on how to effectively do networking for job search. It made a big difference. And that's what I'm here to share with you is the experiences and what I learned, and to give you a plan that is easily executed, to give you a script on how to approach networking and what to say in those conversations. But okay. So why is networking so difficult and why is it uncomfortable? So the folks that I've talked to that have problems with networking, here's some. What Harry didn't mention is I also do a lot of one-on-one volunteer coaching through Crossroads, and here's a lot of when we talk about some of the challenges individuals are having in job search. We talk about networking, and here's some of the things that I hear from people on why they find networking difficult. Okay. And one that I hear a lot, and I'm sure you guys, a lot of you have felt the same way, is that, it means they're asking for a job. They feel like they're desperate. Okay. And the process that we're going to talk about here in a minute, um, you're not going to be asking for a job. Actually, you're going to be asking for advice and counsel. So that awkward piece of it, where you're feeling like you're desperate, is going to be dissipated through the approach you're going to take. I have folks also tell me, I really want to spend the majority of my time interviewing online because it's immediate. And to which my reply is it really immediate? I mean, you may get that quick dopamine-like hit because you apply for the job, but as we'll come to in a minute, a slide where the success online is so low, less than 5% of you getting a call. It often means what you're going to get is immediate rejection, or even worse, you're just going to get silence. I have people tell me, my network is also too small, so I'll take my chances online. And you're going to find out here in a minute, if you do it correctly, which I discovered, your network can expand quite rapidly. In fact, unless you will need an organization process like a spreadsheet or something. If you're networking correctly, it can get to be quite a challenge, and it can get away from you unless you're taking good notes and documenting the people you've talked to and such. I've had folks tell me it feels awkward and fake. I get that. Okay. The awkward and the fake piece, if it's that way because it's networking can be vague and unfocused, but if you have a plan, that'll help that awkward and fakeness issues go away. And I've also had folks say, networking takes too long, but you'll find out that if when you get into networking and do it well, it actually builds your momentum quicker, and it's a good addition to applying online because you can get to jobs a little bit quicker, you can get to the key contacts a little bit quicker. Okay, so they ended by this session today. You're going to leave with a couple things. You're going to leave with an understanding of how you can build a networking strategy. We're going to talk about a job search marketing plan that's about, defining what your objective and your value proposition and some of your key strengths. I'm going to give you a guide for the conversations, and it's also going to be a system that's repeatable. Okay, you're going to be able. It's just going to feed itself. It'll be a loop. It'll just continue as you network. The process will continue itself. So here's why networking matters. And I know a lot of you have probably seen statistics like this before, but 70 to 80% of the jobs are filled through connections and not job boards or posting programs, through online submissions. 70 to 80% of those jobs are filled through connections. And there's many jobs that are never publicly posted. And I'm sure a number of you on this call have probably gotten roles in the past where it never really was put online. The success rate for online is less than 5%. And I've had some folks say, well, okay, that's not too bad. That means for every 100 applications I turn in, I'm going to get 5 interviews. No, what that means for every 100 applications, 5 people are going to get selected. And so, are you going to be one of those 5 people? And I think the stats right now in general, the average amount of applications that recruiters are getting are about 250 per job. And that percentage will change depending upon if it's a lower level job or if it's a more senior level job. But think of 250 applications, and they're only going to be calling in 3 to 5% to interview, and then maybe one individual for the job. So your success rate on just applying online is pretty low. It doesn't mean you need to ignore it. You obviously have to, but you need to accompany it with networking. And I tell folks, since 70%, 70 to 80% of the jobs are filled through connections, you should be spending 70 to 80% of your time networking and the rest of the time doing other job search activities like submitting things online. Okay. So when I talk to folks one-on-one, I'll mention to them, I'll say, we'll talk about a resume, we'll maybe do some mock interviewing, but I'll also ask them, tell me about your networking style and have you networked? And majority of folks say, oh, absolutely, Mike. I mean, networking was one of the first things I did. I put my resume together and then I sent out to my LinkedIn network. I sent my resume out to everyone I know. And I told them, hey, I'm looking for a job in sales or finance or engineering and such industry. And I got 10 or 15 years. Here's a copy of my resume. Please keep me in mind if anything comes up. Okay. For a lot of folks, they think that's networking and it isn't. Okay. Because it's very vague. A lot of times the individual doesn't know, like let's say it's sales. Are you looking for an inside sales job? Are you looking for a sales job? You say tech industry. Well, it's tech industry. Is that something like Meta or is that something like a Verizon? So approaches like this to networking are easy for people to forget and they don't really create any momentum for the most part when you send this out. And I'm sure a lot of you have done this. I did it myself until I learned the right way. A lot of the feedback I got was, well, good luck, Mike. We'll keep in mind. And it really didn't lead to anything. And momentum is what you need in networking. Okay. So I'm going to share with you a system that I learned that was taught to me. Okay. And there's 5 steps to it, and it's pretty simple. And I'm going to walk you through that, and we'll spend a lot of time on each step. So the first step is you're going to create what's referred to as a marketing plan. And this is a document that you can pull from sources you already have. I mean, you already, in your job search, you already have some material on LinkedIn. You have your resume, you have your 30-second or 60-second elevator speech. All those things can help you pull together a marketing plan. And there's going to be a couple of key pieces to it. There's like a professional objective, and I know you don't do that in resumes now, but for networking purposes, it's good to have this on the document. Some sort of value proposition about what makes you the right choice, something that talks about what your strengths and accomplishments are. And you're going to have a one-page document, and the marketing plan is actually going to be one half of this one-page document I'm talking about. This is a sample document that I've used. If you go on the internet and you put in marketing plan for job search, you can find a lot of other ones. I mean, LinkedIn also has some good sources. It doesn't have to look like this. The person that put this one together decided they wanted to bucket their competencies in a couple different groups. I'm just providing this for example purposes, but this is going to help you when you have your networking meetings. This is going to help ground that individual on who you are and what you're interested in. Okay. The second piece of this document, this one-page document, the top piece is going to be your marketing plan. The second piece is going to be your targeted, company list. So you almost have to look at this like you're selling, well, it is, you're selling a product. So if you were in marketing and sales, you would have a marketing or sales strategy. That's the top half. And then you'd have, the markets you want to enter into and maybe what customers you wanted to hit up. This is the same kind of approach. And your target list of employers, you develop that list. The sources you can use for that are like just your own knowledge in the past of companies that you've heard of that you might want to work for. It can be input from friends, relatives, or peers. I liked to use just as some thought starters. I always took a look at competitors and also best places to work lists. Every community has a couple of those. Okay. I know here in the Twin Cities, we probably have three or four different organizations that pull those lists together. And those are good places to start. Okay. You do your LinkedIn resources and your own research on LinkedIn and, maybe targeting companies that some of your friends are working at as well. You start with I started with 25 and I quickly went to 50 companies. A lot of stuff you'll see online when it talks a targeted list will say to start small, which I think is good. Okay. But I found out that as time went on, I learned more about other companies through my networking that I hadn't thought of to put on the list. So start off with 25, but don't be surprised if your list grows rapidly to 50 companies. So you have your marketing plan, you have your targeted company list. The next step is to put together your networking list. Okay, these are individuals that could have very close ties to you. They could be friends, they could be relatives. Some folks like to start with that group, okay, because it's if you don't have a lot of experience talking with people is more comfortable. Other sources include, professionals that you've worked with, like colleagues, managers, maybe people that worked on your staff, folks you've met in the industry, like associations that you might belong to, if you've gone to any conferences or any big networking events and you collected the big hand of cards. I found a really great source for me was consultants and suppliers. So, being in human resources, I always had people knocking on my door to sell me just about everything. It could be training and development programs, it could be applicant tracking programs, could be related to compensation, benefits, employee recognition. I mean, the list went on and on. Okay. So I found those folks to be great individuals to network with, and they wanted to network with me or with you, whatever the consultants or suppliers are in your field, because eventually they knew I was going to land, and then they were going to come knocking on my door. So they viewed me as a potential client down the road. So they were eager to talk to me. Also, I found that individuals that are suppliers and consultants, they're in all of the companies in your area. They're continually knocking on doors, trying to get their foot into new opportunities. So they knew a lot about where employers were going in the Twin Cities. In my circumstance, they knew who might be hiring, what companies might be launching a new division. They just knew where growth opportunities may have been in my community. A third good source, which I think has gotten a lot better with obviously with LinkedIn, is academic alumni and classmates. Even if these are individuals that you weren't in the same class, but you find out that, let's say you want to network with the ABC company in San Diego, and you went to school in Kansas, and you find out that that company in San Diego, there's some alumni from the University of Kansas there. So even if these are individuals you didn't know, I've found that the academic sources can be good networking leads as well. Also, there's all the community uh, pieces to it. So let's say you volunteer coaching your son or daughter's soccer team, you belong to a certain church, you belong to a United Way, any forum where you're interacting with other individuals and you've met through your associations outside work. Those are good sources. And there's a fifth group I call super connectors. And super connectors, I found that were very helpful to me were people who, obviously by the definition of super connectors, people who knew a lot of people. And I discovered that when I started networking and I would ask for individuals and I'd ask them for some other names I could connect with, some folks' names would start to come up fairly frequently. And the super connectors I found were very powerful for helping you make connections in the community. So you're going to have your marketing plan. You're going to have your targeted list of employers. The third piece is your networking list. So now you got all of that, and that's really a one-page document, those three things, okay? And you're going to use that in to leverage what I call is, I believe I've discovered is three human tendencies, okay? You're going to want to take advantage of the fact that I find that most people want to be helpful, they want to talk about themselves, and they want to give advice. Now, not everyone may fit in all three of those buckets. Some people may fit in two, some people may fit in one. I'm sure there's some that don't fit in any. But I found that I leverage these tendencies to get networking meetings. Okay. I found particularly, I think that people do want to be helpful to um, folks in transition out of work individuals. They just don't want to be put in a situation of feeling awkward. So the approach that we're talking about here is going to help them feel more comfortable about doing it. Okay. So your next step four, is to have that networking conversation. You have your target list of companies in the marketing plan. You're going to reach out to your networking list. And as I mentioned before, you're not going to be asking for a job. What you're going to ask them for is you're going to send them an email, and I'll show you a sample email that I used. You're going to say, "Hey, Bill," or "Hey, Mary, I'm in transition, and if you were referred from somebody else, you're going to mention that. Let's say Susan referred me to you, and I'm in transition, and I put together a marketing plan, a job search strategy, and I have a targeted list of employers, and I really would like your advice and counsel on that list." Okay, you're not coming to ask for a job. All right, you're asking for advice and information and referrals, and you're going to request. I have down here 20 to 30 minutes. It took me usually 30. After you get done with some of the social chit chat in some of the introductory pieces at the beginning to get started. That'll take you like five minutes. So you want to make sure that you have enough time, but you also want to be respectful of their time. So I usually requested 20 to 30 minutes, but it usually took about 30. And what you want to leave that session with is, the acronym, and some of you may have heard of this acronym before. AIR. A stands for advice. You're going to want to have feedback on your job search strategy. Second, information. You're going to ask them about the companies on your list. So when I did this, I would ask them, so here's the companies I'm interested in. And do you know anything about any of these companies? Are there some companies I should be talking to that are not on that list? Like, for example, I never thought to put um, private equity firms on my list. And private equity firms, and a lot of you people know this, they make a lot of investments in organizations. So they're constantly buying and selling companies. And a lot of times those companies that they've made investments in need individuals for certain roles. So, that was a big door opener for me, where someone made the suggestion that, hey, there's a couple private equity firms here in the Twin Cities. You may want to connect with them. And you can get access to those private equity firms by looking at just some of the business journals that are in your community. And then the third piece is referrals. You're going to say, hey, is there anyone at these companies that you know, okay, that I could connect with? Are there some individuals, that aren't connected with any of these companies at all that you still think I should meet with? Individuals like super connectors. So you want to leave with, ideally it'd be great to leave with all three of these boxes, okay? But if you just leave with one, that's a good outcome. And I think when I was in networking, I probably networked with about, I'd say 50, 60 organizations before I landed. And I only had two where I left the meeting with absolutely nothing. Okay. But I still made a contact, at least with that individual at that company. So for the most part, I think you'll be very successful in getting either of these boxes of information to help you in your job search. So I think the next slide. So um, a couple things. Let me back up here a minute. Okay, so what dropped from this presentation, and I'm sorry about that, is I had a sample letter in here for networking purposes, but I can repeat it pretty easily. Um, what I would tell folks is I'd send them a short email. Phone calling didn't work for me, and I think network email is still the best approach these days. But what I would do is I'd send the email out and I'd say, introduce myself, HR professional. And again, as I said earlier, if I was referred, I'd say that. And I'd say, I'd like to, get your advice and feedback on my marketing plan and target list of employers. I found that, and then I'd ask for a meeting. I found that when I first started doing that, I'd get, I wasn't getting the response rate that I wanted. So what I also put in my email was a clause that said, my purpose is not to come and hit you up for a job or something to that effect. I'm not going to leverage you for a job. My purpose is really to just get your advice and counsel. And once I did that in the email, I was surprised at the uptick in the number of folks that were willing to meet with me. So that's just a personal experience that I'll share with you. Um, Other things that I learned in the process is, if I didn't have a lot of interviews on my calendar, I could tie it to the number of networking requests that I sent out and the number of networking meetings that I had. At times, if I had some networking meetings pop up or I had some interviews pop up, I'd take my foot off the gas a bit and I wouldn't send out as many networking requests as probably I should have. But I found there was a direct relationship between the number of interviews I had for a real job and the number of networking requests I sent out. I also found that this five-step process provides a little structure to your networking process and it reduced stress. And I think those of you who are on the phone are probably all in transition. And I'm just stating the obvious that looking for a job is stressful, and each month that goes on, it gets more stressful. I found that having this structure and this plan helped me reduce that stress. Some of the other things that I learned is I set up a professional email separate from my personal email. What I mean by professional is you don't want to have like, go Yankees at yahoo.com. You want to have something more professional than that, preferably like the first initial of and then your last name, if that's not being used. And I've also had individuals tell me that I've had employers tell me that, lead with some good, more current email providers like Gmail. Some folks have Yahoo or Hotmail, and hopefully no one on the call here has AOL, but have a more current email provider. You should also, and I think those of you that have heard other presentations about networking, you need to view it as a two-way street. To be honest with you, I struggle with this. And what I mean by that is networking shouldn't be just about taking and getting information from individuals. It should also be about helping the person that you're networking with. That was a little bit of a struggle for me. I found it hard to work all of that in a 30-minute networking conversation. But some of the things that you could do to help that individual is you could also ask them, since you're doing a lot of networking, a lot of meeting of individuals, you could ask them if there's anything that you can help them with, if they need some leads on some other jobs. They may have some other jobs in their organization that they're looking for candidates for. But try to treat networking as much as you can as a two-way street. I think after you've done with the interview, you of course send them or the networking meeting, you send them a thank you and follow up quickly. But I would also keep in touch with that individual as a part of your network. Some folks, after they have a networking meeting, they think they don't, and let's say you're out for 3 or 4 months after that, or 5 or 6, they don't want to go back to their original network. But I think it's important, and I discovered this myself, is that you need to keep your network informed of your status. So, like every 2 or even 3 months, I would send out an email to blind copy your network and say, we met a couple months ago. Want to let you know, I'm still in transition, and I wanted to keep you informed of my status because that keeps you in their minds. That keeps you in the back of your minds. Some folks, I think, feel embarrassed that they have to send that out, and the fact that they're advertising the fact they're still unemployed. But I think it's a really good strategy to use because I know myself when people would come to network with me when I was in human resources, a couple of weeks later or a month later, I'd forget. Okay, I'd forget their name, and if a job kind of came across my desk that I thought that individual would be a candidate for, a lot of times I had forgotten about the conversation. But if that individual had kept me informed of their status, that would have been helpful. The biggest takeaway that I had from networking is something that a lot of you don't read a lot about. Networking, of course, is the big benefit is it gets you visibility to jobs that maybe you wouldn't have visibility to, the hidden job market. It's also good for helping you jump the line, when you post, if you can network into those jobs that are open. So those are obviously benefits from that, but it doesn't really do you any good unless you can land the job. And what I found a great benefit of networking is it's going to improve your interviewing skills significantly if you do it a lot. And here's what happens because when you're networking, you're constantly having conversations with individuals, at least initially, that are going to be uncomfortable. So, real quickly, you learn how to develop a good introductory message, whether it's an elevator speech or whatever it is. You feel the more practice you get in networking meetings, whether they're in person or whether they're over the phone or over Zoom, you'll find out you get better at building rapport. And the reason that's important is when you're in an interview, the thing that you can do the best, you're obviously trying to demonstrate your value to the potential employer. And to do that, you have to have confidence in who you are and the value that you can bring. Okay. So networking can help give you confidence in having those conversations because you're constantly rehearsing for lack of a better word, your script. Okay. So a lot of folks, for those of you that are just started networking, or maybe you haven't yet, you're going to find that the more networking you do, you're going to become better at interviewing as well. Okay. A couple things that I also learned, just little practical tips, is when I first started sending out, I'd send out my email. I would put my marketing plan and targeted list of employers in the email as well. I started to get a few folks initially that would say, yeah, Mike, I don't really know any of these companies. I don't know anyone at these companies. So, there's no need for us to meet. So I quickly learned to just send the email out requesting the networking meeting. And then a day before we actually had the networking session, I would send out, I'd say, here's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Here's my list of targeted employers. Here's my marketing plan. And then I also would send them a resume. And I didn't send the resume initially because it's not about trying to hit them up for a job, although indirectly it somewhat is, but that's not your purpose. Your purpose is to get information. So I held it back, and then I found that individuals, when I sent out a note the night before, sending my list of targeted employers, they would say, hey, Mike, can you also give me your resume? So a night before, I sent out the marketing plan, the targeted list of employers, and also my resume. Okay. Um, Questions the group might have. And Harry, I don't have visibility to the questions. So if I don't know if anybody has any, if they do, if you could help me with them, I would appreciate it. Barry?
I'm sorry. I thought I turned on my mic. I'm talking away.
For a minute there, I thought, have I been speaking for 30 minutes and I didn't have my
No,
mic on or something?
no, you're good. I forgot to turn my mic on and I'm talking
Oh,
away.
okay.
Um, there haven't been many questions, but there was comments just agreeing with many things you've said. Uh, Here are a couple that came up. What's the best way to network into a company where you don't have a network or any contacts at all?
Well, I think I think you can. What I used to do is I would use some sort of line or some sort of dialogue, which was legitimate, that I've long been, I've long admired your company. Okay. I like the markets that you're in. I've liked your strength, your presence in the community. I'm in human resources. I've heard about you. Okay, now maybe you haven't had a connection to them, but I tried that as well, and a lot of times that will work too. So that's kind of like a total cold call. Okay, but I would look really hard through LinkedIn to see if you have some sort of connection that can help lead you to that. But sometimes it's basically a cold call, and I would start off by just asking that, telling them, asking them, saying, "Hey, I really admire your organization and what you guys are doing, and I've heard about your name in the community in human resources or engineering or whatever it is, and can we meet to go over, you do your spiel about what you're trying to get from the individual, the marketing plan and target a list of companies. So,
LinkedIn is a tremendous resource to find people to reach out to. And so many times
yeah,
people think they have to find the hiring manager. And, it's fine if you do, but anybody in the organization can give you, as you said, advice, information, and referrals. And so don't hesitate to reach out to anybody you can find at the organization.
yeah.
That's great. Somebody's asking if you can go back to the slide with step 4. He is looking for some information on there. Whoops, lost my spot here. Hang on.
Well, there might be more than one. Oh, yeah, there is. Step 4. That's it.
Okay. What if you find networking and connecting to others isn't leading to more new connections and conversations? I'll let you comment on this, but I just want to put things in perspective for people. I always relate it to baseball, that if you're batting 300, you're actually, doing great and you're going to probably be in the Hall of Fame someday. But networking is the same way. You might have 7 out of 10 people where you get nowhere, and 3 out of 10 that help you in some way. And you have to keep going. And sometimes you run a long streak of not getting any results, but you have to keep going, and it does start paying off.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Harry. In fact, I found, and other individuals I've talked to, is that if they get the flywheel of networking going, the challenge becomes staying on top of it, making sure that making sure who you're going to meet, if they referred, if someone referred you to them, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I agree with you 100%.
Is there a good resource to find out about regular networking meetings? They're really well. It hasn't been kept up to date lately, but if you Google Nancy or look on LinkedIn for Nancy Frasch, Fraasch, she has a consulting organization. On her page for her website, she keeps a list of networking groups around the Twin Cities area. But there's certainly Crossroads has opportunities, and I'll talk about it at the end of our session today. Wooddale in Eden Prairie, Wooddale Church has a networking meeting every Monday morning. There are one of the most thriving ones these days is Saturday networking with Lenny and Lisa on the first Saturday morning of each month. They do a tremendous job. If you just search SNLL in LinkedIn, you'll find their LinkedIn group. If you join that, you'll find details there. But it's interesting. One of the prior to the pandemic, there were 45 job groups around the Twin Cities, and now there's about 6 or 8, which is too bad because I think the more options there are, the better. But ask around, go to some of the groups and ask people what other groups are you aware of, and you'll find more as well. Any other resources you might know of that?
Yeah, I encourage people to, I know AI is kind of a dirty word right now in job search. I've had people, I just AI it. Say, fine, can you give me a job? I use the words job networking group because there's a lot of networking groups like for people who are trying to expand their business. So I say, find, is there find, I'm looking for a job networking group within 30 miles of my location. And I've helped individuals do that, and there's always multiple sources to find. I've also found that the majority of the networking resources tend to come through churches. And there's some that aren't, but I think that's because a lot of churches have like social justice ministries and such. So I've found that a lot of the good networking groups out there are through churches. And it doesn't matter, like, let's say it's a Baptist church and you're Lutheran, or it's a Methodist church and you're Catholic. No one cares about that. But I've used the internet, AI, to help source those. I also, and this is somewhat related to that question, I when I speak to individuals one-on-one, I always encourage them to get to a job search group because there's a couple of different things that come out of a good job networking group. Number one is there's usually a topic, so there's a speaker. Number two, you get to practice your elevator pitch with a bunch of people in the room. But number three is when you're in search, when you're in transition, it's a nice uplift to be with your own kind, to be with other individuals who are also facing some of the same challenges that you are, so you can kind of talk about your experiences. So I tell folks to get with a job search networking group. The second thing I suggest to them is try to find an online job search workshop, whether it's a 1 day work, 1 hour workshop, or if it's over multiple times. And I think Harry will talk about what Crossroads does in that regard. Number three, I encourage individuals to find someone to do practice interviewing with, someone who does interviewing in their, has had experience doing it. And that could be, any manager or a supervisor or an HR person, or you can access some of the job support groups like Crossroads to help you with that as well.
Terrific. I would go a step further on. You mentioned it is true that most job groups are in churches, but you don't have to be a Christian if you're Muslim or Hindu
Right, right.
no, or an atheist. You're
Yep,
certainly welcome at any of those groups, and
yep.
it's not about are you the same denomination or not. So don't hesitate to take advantage of them. There's no restrictions, and they serve everyone. A number of great. Thank you guys, everybody online that's putting in all this information for other groups. As I said, I think the more groups that are out there, the better. We're certainly not in competition with each other. It's really, I think, some groups resonate better with some people and others with others. And I think the more options there are, the better. So I'd love to see them expand. I don't see any other questions at the moment, but Mike, like I say, I love your approach on this because it's so practical, and you give people step by step. Here's what you can do. One recommendation I would make is if you haven't picked up a copy of the 20-minute networking meeting, a book written by Marsha Bollinger and Nathan Perez. And I've had each of them speak. In fact, and I'll talk about it in a couple minutes here, but Marsha Bollinger is going to be speaking on August 6th here, coming up shortly in a couple of weeks at our meeting at Grace Church in Eden Prairie. But both of them have spoken quite a bit. Their book has done incredibly well, it's a national bestseller, and it's a great, very practical guide on how to have an effective 20-minute networking meeting. And it doesn't have to be exactly 20 minutes, but it's just very practical on how to go about it as well. So check that out.
Yeah. I had just one miscellaneous faux pas on networking I'd share with individuals. When I talk about that target company list and your intent is not to push them for a job, um, I had an experience where I showed up. I was referred to this individual, and I didn't want to work for the organization that this individual was at. And that's okay. You can network with people. You can say, I don't want to work for this organization, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't network with them. And I didn't have this individual's company on the list. And that because I wasn't really interested in that organization. And that's the first thing the guy said to me is, why isn't our company on this list? So that was an embarrassing moment. I thought I'd just share with the group and learn from my experience. But make sure whoever you're networking with, make sure their company's on the list, whether you want to work for that organization or not.
Great point. I hadn't actually thought of that before, but I can see how that would be a question, maybe spoken or unspoken. That's a very great point. Other comments or questions for Mike? We have people sharing their LinkedIn profiles and experience on here and contact information. Take advantage of that networking with each other here. And then I'll talk about your chance to get plugged in with other networking with Crossroads as well. It looks like that's it. Mike, thank you so much. As always, I appreciate how you serve others. Mike is one of our coaches as well. I'll talk here in a minute about how you can get one-on-one coaching. And Mike is one of our volunteers that you might potentially hook up with to get some direct help about your individual circumstances. And so with that, I'm going to share. Let me turn my video back on. I'm going to share my screen here with some slides and run through quickly everything else that's available to you through Crossroads, and hope that you are able to take advantage of more resources and help we have. I think trying to go this alone can be so discouraging. And so get the help and support. And, I am very focused on the fact that, we want to make sure we provide the best help and resources and strategies and tactics for your job search. But I think as important, and over the years, I'm starting to believe that maybe even more important is just having a group of people that you can build relationships with, that you can get support from, that you can get hope and encouragement from, and a new spring in your step each week. I think staying plugged into a group where you can realize you're not an island, everybody else has the same concerns and fears and stresses that you have in this process, and that you don't have to do this alone. I think this can be a very lonely process, and it's all skills and habits each day that you're not accustomed to, that aren't in your strengths or not in your areas of comfortability. And so getting that outside support is so critically important. And I hope through Crossroads, we can provide that for you. So everything we offer through Crossroads is visible on our website at mncrossroads.com. And so if you may have signed up for this webinar there to get on this today, but peruse the rest of the site too. You can find out everything else we have going on, the schedules, the resources that are on there. And we have a job board. If you're in the Minneapolis area, there's a number of companies that know what we do and post positions on there because they get good people from Crossroads. And so if you respond to one of those, you can put in a note that you found out about it through Crossroads, and very often that'll get you some additional personal attention there too. So take advantage of everything on the website and find all the details of other things that are coming on. All the presentations and topics for our seminars and webinars are on the seminars page on the website. You can see the schedule there, but check out the rest of the site too. Kind of our pattern each month is that the first Thursday of each month is in person at Grace Church in Eden Prairie. And we have a presentation like this, as well as our networking group that meets that morning. And typically we have Brad Markwell there to answer any questions about financial considerations during a job search as well, because obviously that plays a part in the whole big picture here. And so he's very good at helping people make some good decisions and give you some options of things that are advantageous to do while you're in a job search. Anyway, check us out. The next one is coming up August 6th on Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. And I'll have more details for you for you here in just a moment or two. The second Thursday evening at 7 p.m. is at Woodbury Lutheran Church, and that's in person only on the other side of town. And we have another presentation that goes on there each month. And then the third Thursday morning is this webinar online that you're on right now. And so you can participate, obviously, from anywhere in the country on that. It's interesting, every now and then we get somebody from another part of the world as well, from Europe or Africa or Australia even. And I always wonder, what time is it there? But it's great when we have those people from other parts of the country and around the world as well. But always, you can find the details on the webinar page on our website to find out what's coming up next, who's speaking, what the topic is, and what's available to you. On a weekly basis, there's additional ways to get plugged in. Every Thursday morning, we have our networking group that meets, and that's a place where you can share contacts and leads and ideas and get information from others. The first Thursday morning of each month is in person at Grace Church, but every following Thursday each month is through a Zoom meeting online. And so you do need to register on our website in order to get the Zoom link to participate. But it's a great way you can plug in there and get new contacts, especially if you have target companies, someplace that you're applying to or that you just want to target in general. It's everybody looks up what contacts they have and shares them with you. And you can then apply some of these networking concepts that Mike talked about today to be able to pursue that. And so you can still participate this morning. If you go to the website, look for the networking page, you can sign up and get the Zoom link to be able to plug into that at 9 o'clock this morning yet. We have one-on-one coaching available. And so if you sign up on the forum online, you can get one of our volunteers will reach out to you to set up a time for a Zoom meeting or a phone call. And you can talk about anything that is concerning you about your job search, whether it's to have them look at your resume and give you some critique, or to help you prepare for an interview, or maybe do mock interview practice, or just to talk through your personal situation and maybe get some fresh ideas or insight, or be able to process it with somebody that gets it. You know, I find that many times family and friends can be very supportive, but they don't really get what you go through in this process. And so talking it through with somebody that understands and can give you some valuable insight or advice can be very helpful. So take advantage of that as often as you'd like. Sign up on the form on our website and somebody will reach out to you. We are big believers in the power of prayer, and I'm grateful we have people on our team that love to pray for you in general as a group. But if you have a specific prayer request, we have a page for that on our website. You can enter that there and somebody will pray for you specifically on whatever your request is. If you feel like you're really struggling emotionally and spiritually through this process and really would like to talk to somebody on maybe a little more regular basis about that, we have people in our soul care group as well. And so email us through the website. You'll find the information there, and somebody will reach back out to you to find a time to talk and maybe set up a schedule where you can meet with them more regularly. We really want to support you in more ways than just providing tactical content. The most in-depth we get in meat and potatoes of what we offer is through our small group classes. And The classes can range from 5 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on who the facilitator is, but we cover every aspect of a successful job search, starting with attitude and getting in the right frame of mind and doing some assessments to have better self-awareness and talk about who you are and your strengths with greater conviction. Certainly talk through a lot about networking and interviewing and resumes, et cetera. But I think as important as all the content and giving you more confidence about are you doing the right things for your job search, I think the weekly light accountability and check-in with others and getting some moral support and encouragement is just as important. And having that built into your schedule really makes a big difference. And throughout the 8 weeks, we talk about God's perspective of your job search and your life. He cares about your career just like he cares about whatever you happen to do on Sunday morning. And we have new classes starting monthly. And there's one actually starting at the end of this month. You can find the details on the website and sign up for it. Michael Hurley, one of our facilitators, is going to be launching a 5-week class. I think he's starting it on the 26th of July here. So if I'm remembering the date correctly, I might be a little bit off. Maybe 29th. It's a Wednesday. So check that out, sign up for it. I really encourage you to take advantage of the classes. Even if you've been through our workshops or you've been through our seminars, I think that weekly input and fresh ideas and new content, as well as maybe some things that you already know but needed to be reminded and to get back to and do more effectively. So take advantage of the classes. They're incredibly good to help you stay plugged into your job search effectively. We have a LinkedIn group. If you put MN Crossroads Career Network in the search box in LinkedIn, you'll find two things. One is our company page, and I encourage you to follow that because the more people we have registered on our company page, the better exposure we get. And I'm not trying to build numbers for Crossroads. It's really about if people want help in their job search, we want them to be aware we're available to them. And so we post all kinds of information on the company page. But the other thing you'll find is our LinkedIn group, and you have to register there so that we limit it to people that are actually in the United States. We have gotten people from Hong Kong trying to sell stuff that goes in there. So we have a registration process now. But register for the group, and there's all kinds of information that gets put in there. But I think the most valuable aspect of the group is there are tons of people that have been through Crossroads, are in the group and stayed in the group after they landed in a new job and are just making themselves available to be a contact at the company that they're working at now. And so you can look through the membership, see where people are working. And if there's somebody at a company you're interested in pursuing, reach out to them and ask for advice and insight and referrals, as Mike said. And then after you land, it's a great way to give back and pay it forward to others. Just stay in the group and be available for others to reach out to you as well and help them through the process too. So take advantage of the LinkedIn group. It's a great way to find contacts at organizations you are interested in, plus a lot of information gets posted in there as well. This webinar and all of our webinars, we started doing webinars during the pandemic when we couldn't meet in person. And so we have several years now of webinars that are posted on our YouTube channel. So if you put MN Crossroads Career Network in the YouTube search box, you'll find us. And there are so many topics of dozens and dozens of webinars we've done over the last few years. And you can find whatever it is that you're struggling with in your job search right now and see a webinar on that topic. So great thing about YouTube is you can fast forward through having to listen to me, and you can listen in double time or rewind or recapture any of it. And so before the end of the day today, this webinar will be posted on that YouTube channel as well, so you can review and catch things that you may have missed through Mike's presentation earlier. I just want to acknowledge we've got actually, I think it's 45 people right now that volunteer for Crossroads in one way or another. And I'm grateful for every one of them because it enables us to do all these different things, and it enables us to move things forward and help more people. And so I'm grateful for each of their time and effort and expertise that they bring into it. We have recruiters, we have HR professionals, we have all kinds of people that know what they're talking about and just give of their time. Nobody's getting a paycheck. Nobody is doing it because of notoriety or for money in any way, but rather just because they have a heart to serve others. And I'm grateful for each and every one of them. If you don't have a church home, I certainly encourage you to visit one of ours on a Sunday morning, Grace Church in Eden Prairie or Woodbury Lutheran Church. We have services streaming online and in person, but I encourage you to get out there in person and build community and get moral support from others. And each of them offers great teaching on a Sunday morning in terms of and spiritual support and insight that I think is so valuable and needed. Don't try to be an island unto yourself while you're going through your job search or any time in life. Our next seminar is in person only at Grace Church in Eden Prairie. And as I mentioned earlier, Marcia Bollinger, who's actually written 3 different books, one on networking, as I mentioned. She wrote one on jumping into nonprofit organizations, and she wrote one on winning the executive interview. And she's going to be discussing that topic at our next meeting on the August 6th in person at Grace Church. So take advantage of that. With that, I am going to wrap up this morning. If you want to still participate in the networking group at 9 o'clock, get onto our website at mncrossroads.com and register for that so you can get the Zoom link. And it's, as I mentioned, a great way to get contacts and leads and ideas there. Wes Tang leads that, and he does such a great job of helping everybody walk out with something each day. And he's just super encouraging too. Glad you joined us this morning. Hope it was worthwhile, and hope to see you at other events unless you find a job, and that's a great reason not to come back. So hope you land a job quickly. Best wishes. Have a great day.